Gaza conflict deaths pass 800 as Kerry pushes ceasefire. The United States Secretary of State John Kerry has been in Cairo meeting Egypt's foreign minister and the UN Secretary General. 5 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank, while 1 Israeli soldier was killed in northern Gaza. Activists called for a day of rage over the deaths of 800 Palestinians in Gaza. Israel has lost 36 people. Most of the Palestinian deaths have been civilians, while 34 of Israel's dead have been soldiers. 1 Thai worker was also killed by rocket fire in Israel. Israel launched new airstrikes on targets in Gaza on Friday, and said it had killed the senior member of militant group Islamic Jihad. The Israeli military reported new rocket launches by militants inside the Gaza Strip, with several intercepted. Israel launched its military offensive on July 8 with the declared objective of stopping Hamas firing rockets into Israel, extending its operation since then to destroy tunnels dug by militants to infiltrate its territory. Hopes rose for at least a limited deal on Friday as it emerged that Mr. Kerry, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry and UN Chief Ban Ki-moon were planning the news conference for later in the day. Intensive diplomatic efforts to negotiate an end to the violence are continuing. It is understood that the United States Secretary of State John Kerry and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon are proposing the 2-part ceasefire plan. The first stage would be a temporary humanitarian truce that would go into effect at the start of the Muslim festival of Eid next week. The pause in hostilities would then, it is proposed, allow negotiations on a more permanent ceasefire. But it is not clear if the two sides will be able to agree. It is thought that Israel wants to keep its troops on the ground during the temporary ceasefire, to give it more time to destroy the cross-border tunnels. For its part, Hamas is pushing for what it calls a genuine guarantee that the blockade on Gaza will be lifted. Mr. Kerry is expected to leave the region on Friday, whether or not a deal is agreed. The plan is thought to include provision for a temporary pause in hostilities that could begin as soon as this weekend. Israel wants to keep its military in Gaza and continue disabling Hamas tunnels. Any plan must be approved both by Israel's Security Cabinet and senior Hamas leaders, including Qatar-based Khaled Mersil. The bloodshed has spread to the West Bank, the larger of the 2 Palestinian territories. 3 Palestinian men were shot dead in clashes with Israeli soldiers in the village of Beit Umar, near Hebron. Palestinian officials and medical sources said 2 Palestinian men were shot dead in clashes with Jewish settlers and Israeli soldiers near Nablus. Palestinian officials and medical sources said at least 2 Palestinians died in overnight protests at Kalandia, in the West Bank, after 10,000 protesters massed and clashed with Israeli border police. There has been a huge Israeli security operation around Muslim Friday prayers in the Old City, involving more than 2,000 Israeli police. Palestinian men under the age of 50 were forbidden from praying at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. It follows a night of violence in the West Bank. Outside Ramallah, more than 10,000 Palestinians marched towards Jerusalem and clashed with Israeli soldiers. 2 Palestinians were killed and more than 200 were wounded, while 29 Israeli police officers were injured. There is much anger here about the mounting casualties in Gaza. As ever, there is talk about the possibility of a 3rd Palestinian intifada, or uprising, that may or may not take place. But the situation is as tense in the West Bank as at any time in the last 5 years. On Thursday, at least 15 people died at a UN-run school shelter on Thursday, with Palestinians and Israelis blaming each other. Funerals were held on Friday for the victims, who included a 6-month-old baby. The UN's Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs OCHA says a 3 km (1.9-mile) wide strip, encompassing 44% of Gaza, has been designated as a no-go zone by the Israeli military during the current conflict. Israel imposed restrictions on the Gaza Strip in 2006, after Hamas abducted Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit.